understand that Mother Nature wins every time. So if you have the opportunity to evacuate and you can, you should, please do.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, people along Florida's Gulf Coast bracing for Hurricane Idalia. The urgent warning right now from officials as catastrophic storm surge could impact the coast.
We will continue to move forces in to be ready to respond at Florida's request.
FEMA says it's ready to respond after Hurricane Idalia hits Florida, but it comes as the agency deals with a funding crisis. What it all could mean for the rest of hurricane season.
They strongly oppose these proposals from Representative Bulls, so they're reprehensible, they're asinine, they're insulting, and they're not fitting.
Representative Jones, you are about ready to be ruled out of order.
One of the so-called Tennessee Three silenced on the House floor during a special legislative session. The outrage from Nashville as lawmakers try to tackle public safety months after a deadly shooting. And a popular drug for diabetes and weight loss now being studied for possibly curbing alcohol cravings, how it works, and what else it could be used for. Scripps News Live begins right now. Hey there and welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you today. I'm Veronica Cruz. We begin this hour with an unprecedented event brewing for parts of Florida's Big Bend. Hurricane Idalia strengthening as it tracks towards the Gulf Coast. It's a Category 1 storm right now, but it is expected to roar into Florida as a Category 3. The storm already causing flooding and power outages in Cuba before making its turn north. The National Hurricane Center says catastrophic storm surge is expected tonight and tomorrow morning, with forecasts showing 10 to 15 feet of storm surge for the coastal areas just west of Gainesville and Tampa. The mayor also is saying so far more than 30,000 sandbags have been passed out to the people in the city. And despite a shifting landfall track, they are urging people to heed the evacuation warnings.
We don't want anyone to wake up, see the blue skies, and think that we are done with Idalia. That is not the case. And that probably will be the most critical element tomorrow, will be that storm surge, especially if it comes in with that king tide, that higher tide caused by the full moon.
Right now, a mandatory evacuation order is in place for mobile homes in low-lying parts of Hillsborough County. People outside of the evacuation zone getting ready in other ways, putting out sandbags, filling up their cars with gas, buying supplies, and making other preparations. Some people say that they are securing their homes and heading for higher ground after living through Hurricane Ian last year.
A lot of times people see hurricanes coming and use it as an excuse to party or take off work and everything else, but after seeing what happened with Ian, it just shows the effects that it can have and the mass destruction it can have.
Governor Ron DeSantis expanded an emergency declaration today, now covering 49 counties. Evacuations have been ordered in at least 22 counties. Tampa International Airport and St. Pete Clearwater International Airport have also closed. At least 5,500 National Guard members have been activated in Florida, ready to respond, and they're going to be joined by other rescue crews, including Ohio's Task Force 1. The 47-person team now headed to Georgia to set up camp and wait for their assignments.
We are what we call an all-hazards team, from, anything from rescuing somebody at a height to rescuing somebody out of a trench to a collapsed structure to swift water to anything you can think of. We are prepared to do any of those rescue jobs that are required.
Hurricane Idalia expected to pass over Gainesville after it makes landfall tomorrow. The University of Florida already closing campus, prompting the Florida Gators to leave a date early for their season opener against Utah in Salt Lake City. Scripps News national correspondent John Moan joins us now live from Gainesville. John, bring us up to speed. What's happening right now where you're at?
Veronica, you can see behind me we're at a sandbag depot. Workers here from the city are filling up people's trucks and cars. You give a city worker a ticket here, you get access to 10 sandbags. We understand from the National Hurricane Center that we could get winds in excess of 100 miles an hour in Gainesville. That means a lot of downed trees. We could have some overland flooding. So people here getting sandbags because they're worried about water getting into their homes, getting into their garages, putting those sandbags in front of their doorways. We also visited an area by the coast an hour away from us by the Gulf called Cedar Key. with those storm surges, anywhere from 10 to 15 feet now, Cedar Key could be cut off from the mainland because of that storm surge. The causeway leading to it could be effectively under 10 feet of water. So people are heeding that warning, taking it seriously, and they're getting out.
As you can see, residents and business owners of Cedar Key are paying attention to the storm's path, heeding the warnings, boarding up, packing up, and evacuating.
It's a very small community. Everyone knows everyone. So this is when it's extra scary because I really hope everyone's okay right now.
Carol Carlin owns a souvenir shop right on the docks, fearful the hurricane storm surge will inundate everything.
There's still a lot left, but anything that we can shove in that truck, we're going to try to get out of here so we can salvage. You know, we don't know what we're going to come back to.
She's bagging up everything and getting out.
We're just hoping everyone does the right thing.
The same goes for Leah Gore.
We just opened in February.
She runs an artist collective closer into town.
Getting everything out of here, hopefully so that the moisture and whatever happens doesn't destroy it. And, you know, the furniture and the flooring and the painting, that can all be redone, but the artwork, it can't be replaced.
In 2016, Hurricane Hermine damaged much of Cedar Key. There's even still marks in some of the buildings of where the flooding happened.
There's some nervousness for sure. I think more this morning than has been in the prior days.
This hurricane could blow through furiously but quickly, so the folks we spoke to in Cedar Key hoping they can return in short order to check on any damage that their property may suffer. In terms of here at the Sandbag Depot, we expect it to shut down now to new traffic. People have been waiting in line for 2 hours or more to get access to this. Veronica?
All right, John Moon reporting for us this afternoon from Gainesville, Florida. John, thank you so much. So today marks 18 years since Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast, packing powerful winds before leaving a path of destruction. Now, the storm is the costliest in the country. It caused nearly $194 billion in damage and claimed the lives of nearly 1,400 people. The images of people stranded on rooftops, waiting on bridges for help, and packed inside of the Superdome are still vivid 18 years later. Two of the biggest lessons officials learned since Katrina: be prepared and have a plan of action. Louisiana Congressman Troy Carter wants people to keep that in mind as hurricane season begins to ramp up.
We know the devastation it left behind. We know the pain that it caused. We know the lives that we lost. We know the properties that were damaged. May we take this time to remember and prepare as we go forward. Yes, we're now in the midst of hurricane season. Pay attention, be ready. Listen to the plans from your federal, local, and state agencies. Let us never forget the pain of these past storms and always be ready.
Today also marks 2 years since Hurricane Ida made landfall on the Louisiana coast. Ida was a monstrous Category 4 storm, and it displaced many people. Dr. Jill Trepanier is an associate professor in the Geography and Anthropology Department at Louisiana State University, and part of her academic research is focused on tropical cyclones. Doctor, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. So warnings have been posted about potentially life-threatening storm surge. You just heard our reporter right there talking about being potentially as high as 15 feet in some areas as Idalia moves closer to making landfall. Just so folks understand at home, explain exactly what storm surge is and how and why it can be so deadly.
Storm surge is the oncoming rush of water when a hurricane makes landfall. We define landfall when the eye of the system, so the very center point, crosses land, but storm surge extends well beyond that center location. Where the storm makes landfall does lead to the different expectation right at that space, but I want people to be mindful that storm surge expands well beyond the center circulation of that system. And things that can make storm surge worse are, of course, low-lying areas, but most of Western Florida is, in fact, low-lying. And so I don't think there are many places where people can find elevated areas. So that evacuation is important, and those evacuation zones should be listened to. In addition to that, the western side of Florida has a really gradual continental shelf, which means As that storm gets closer to land, it begins to run out of ocean real estate, and the water has only one place to go, and that's up and then over that landscape. So you see this high level of flooding as a response to that storm running out of ocean space and having to spill over some area of land.
And what is your take, Doctor, on climate change impacting the amount of sea level or the volume of sea level that we've been seeing? You hear 12 to 15 feet of storm surge. Is that greater than what we've been seeing in years past?
Not really. So I think sea level rise is a slower or more gradual process. And so it has to do with large amounts of ice from land melting and passing into the ocean water and thus increasing the amount of water available. So it increases sea levels, particularly in places like Louisiana and Florida, where we have very low lying areas. But that climate change signature that people are maybe looking for really is more related to the intensity of the system, which indirectly impacts the surge. Surge is much more locally dependent and depends on where it's making landfall. So that geography is everything. Sea level rise plays a small piece into that, but I think really it's about that low-lying aspect of Western Florida, paired with the possibility of coming in at the same time as high tide and minimal places for people to move inland. So I think evacuation and preparation now is important.
Right. And we talk about those low-lying areas, and I know that data from the National Hurricane Center shows that some places will be even more vulnerable to storm surge and flooding in years ahead. You were talking about Florida, Louisiana, but there are also cities like New York and Miami that have made that list. What is it going to mean for people who are living there, and are you seeing the same type of data in your research?
Yes, I am. So, one of the interesting things of this climate change influence on tropical cyclones is really about that geography. So, in the Gulf of Mexico, we already see a lot of development happen. We've had the conditions available to us for many decades to turn, a thunderstorm into a tropical cyclone into a really massive event. Places on the eastern seaboard have not habitually experienced these in the past. So I like to think of it as a shifting in the new normal or the new expectation. So those that live in places that did not historically experience them might now be in that threshold of enough energy available in the ocean. They're able to sustain the winds in a tropical system to higher northern latitudes compared to what used to happen. So I think in those places, getting used to a new normal, increasing the infrastructure to help prepare against these types of events that's going to be an important component moving into the future for the places that are not used to experiencing them.
Right, and these are big ticket items that are out of a lot of people's hands. And as you're talking, we're showing video of people preparing for Idalia, they're sandbagging and the like. So I want to stay focused on this storm for a second, and I would like for you to talk more about how the residents of these coastal cities can protect themselves ahead of the storm.
So here in the Gulf Coast, we really have a large emphasis on the preparation beginning prior to hurricane season. So having that plan in place before a storm is ever out in the Gulf or in the Caribbean is important. And I think Florida residents are pretty familiar with that, especially given 2022 and Ian. I think what they're doing now, as far as getting those sandbags ready, being mindful of the fact that the system, though, even though there might be blue skies in the morning, the system is in fact on its way. So I really like to see and hear about the residents becoming more prepared in the oncoming steps of the storm coming. We have that preparation that we set, and really when the storm is coming, that's when they are supposed to move to action. So it's great to see that they are doing that. They're heeding that warning. They're listening to the advice of local officials. I think besides things like sandbags and of course making sure you have ample supply to fresh water as well as non-perishable food items. Coming in contact with energy is difficult after an event like this, at least for a couple of days. So making sure you have food and water. But if you're in that evacuation zone, my advice would be to leave, because if it's going to flood and the evacuation zone has that signature, it's best to get out of the way and then take stock of what happens afterward.
Absolutely, especially when you're talking about storm surge as high as 15 feet in some areas. Dr. Jill Trepanier from the Geography and Anthropology Departments of Louisiana State University. Doctor, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, we're going to continue to follow preparations for Hurricane Idalia and what it looks like for other parts of Florida right now. And classes have been canceled in Chapel Hill today after an on-campus shooting. What we've learned so far about that investigation and the suspect next.
This is an important message for the millions of Medicare recipients covered under your state's Medicaid. Medicare and Medicaid give you some benefits, but there are Medicare Advantage plans available with even more benefits and savings. Call the number on your screen and get a free Medicare benefits review to see if you qualify. A licensed insurance agent is standing by to take your call.
Just call 800-981-2945 now.
Some Medicare Advantage plans may include dental, vision, and hearing coverage, $0 copays for prescription drugs, and an annual allowance to spend on groceries, rent, and utilities for those who qualify. Plus, some plans may include lots of doctors and hospitals, all in-network. You don't get these benefits automatically. Call now and get a free, no-obligation benefits review.
Just call 800-981-2945 now. That's 800-981-2945.
Plus, certain beneficiaries may qualify based on income verification to enroll in their state-based Medicare savings program. That can add up to $164 back to their Social Security check every month. Call the number on your screen to see if you qualify for this state-based program. A licensed insurance agent is standing by to take your call.
Just call 800-981-2945 now.
Medicare and Medicaid give you some benefits, but there are Medicare Advantage plans available with even more benefits and savings. Plus, some plans may include lots of doctors and hospitals, all in-network. Plans may include dental, vision, and hearing coverage, $0 copays for prescription drugs, and an annual allowance to spend on groceries, rent, and utilities for those who qualify. Plus, you may be eligible for a plan with free transportation. Remember, you don't get these benefits automatically. Call now and get a free, no-obligation benefits review.
Just call 800-981-2945 now. That's 800-981-2945.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Call 800-820-9953.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and will even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Call 800-820-9953. That's 800-820-9953.
A UNC Chapel Hill grad student accused of shooting his professor is officially charged with murder. The 34-year-old making his first court appearance today, where he was denied bond. He's also facing a charge for possession of a weapon on school property. He'll be back in court on September 18th. The university was on lockdown for 3 hours on Monday afternoon as police searched for the gunman. The victim, Zhuja Yan, is an educator in the suspect's department. Police haven't released a motive, saying the investigation is ongoing. All classes in Chapel Hill are canceled today. Today is the 241st day of 2023, and that number of violent incidents where at least 4 people have been killed or injured far exceeds that number. The Gun Violence Archive is saying nearly 500 shootings fit that criteria in the U.S. so far this year. That's the highest number in any year since at least 2013, when the group began tracking gun violence. There are more than 20 in the week that ended this past Sunday. In Tennessee, lawmakers are still trying to make progress in a special session to address public safety. It all comes months after the deadly Covenant school shooting in Nashville. The session has been very contentious at times, including on Monday, when Republican state lawmakers voted to silence Democratic Representative Justin Jones. Scripps News Nashville's Chris Davis reports.
Now in session.
There have been moments of frustration throughout this special session, but it finally manifested into this.
They strongly oppose these proposals from reps in the booth, so they're reprehensible, they're asinine, they're insulting, and they're not fitting.
Representative Jones, you are about ready to be ruled out of order.
When Nashville Representative Justin Jones was first given a warning, then gavelled out of order once.
What is one little Glock against an AR-15?
Representative Jones, that's not the bill that's before you, sir. You're out of order.
And then a second time.
What our schools need are mental health professionals. We need funding for mental health, for counselors. We need to pay our teachers better. We don't need more police in our schools.
Representative Jones, you're off the bill again, sir. You're out of order.
Under new House rules approved for this special session, members that speak off topic 2 times cannot be called on for the rest of the day.
Our rules say that the body must now vote.
During that vote to silence Jones, House Democrats all stormed out of the chamber.
Department of Safety, please clear the balcony for disorderly behavior.
While the gallery was removed for speaking out during proceedings.
All I was doing was focusing on lifting up the voice of Davidson County, of my district, who said we need mental health professionals, counselors, we need common sense gun laws.
House Minority Leader Karen Camper claimed it was politically motivated.
You know, he had sent a letter to the Speaker and all the members that he was going to call for a vote of no confidence. And that was going to happen today on the unfinished business. And so, of course, he was silenced for today. So he was not able to do that.
The chaos in the House comes as uncertainty still permeates here at the Capitol of what lawmakers will actually get done before they go home.
But the Senate has completed its business for the session, and that's...
Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson made it clear they have no plans to consider any additional bills beyond the 3 they've already passed.
We just don't think there is time during a special session, which lasts a few days, to properly vet those bills.
While House leaders last week indicated they won't back down either.
But Chris, the Senate needs to get back to work.
Meaning moments of frustration may only continue.
To Chris Davis for that report coming from Tennessee. So the State House recently faced a lawsuit from the ACLU after adopting rules to disallow the use of signs during their special session. The Davidson County Chancellor ruled on Monday that handheld signs would be allowed for the remainder of the session. Still ahead on Scripps News Live, it's been a month since major flooding hit Vermont. We're going to check back in with homeowners as the recovery process continues. And if you want free shipping from Amazon, then you might have to spend a little more to get it. The change is coming for the online giant next.
You're looking pretty good, Mr. Johnson. But we need to take some x-rays today.
Okay.
Yes, x-rays are expensive, but the front desk said you recently enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan with extra benefits that now cover today's x-rays and cleaning costs.
Okay.
Well, Medicare Parts A and B do not cover your routine dental coverage like cleanings, fillings, or x-rays. Yes, you have a Medicare Part C plan, commonly called Medicare Advantage. Medicare Part C plans cover everything in Part A and Part B, plus extra benefits like dental, vision, and hearing.
Wow. That's great that my plan includes dental coverage that helps pay for these costs.
Yes, Mr. Johnson. A Medicare Part C plan could include dental coverage that pays for routine dental exams and teeth cleanings, dental x-rays, fillings, tooth extractions, root canals, dentures, implants, and crowns.
If you're losing coverage, moving, or new to Medicare, call to speak with a licensed insurance agent. You don't get a plan with these benefits automatically, so it's always good to call to see if there's a plan with extra benefits available in your zip code. If you don't have a Medicare Part C plan, call now because there may be plans available with additional benefits that are simply not covered under Medicare Parts A and B, like routine dental coverage. In fact, 24 million Medicare beneficiaries do not have any dental coverage. Here's the good news. If you're on Medicare, you can call even if you called last year. We will check to see if there is a Part C plan available in your area with additional benefits. Remember, you don't get Medicare Part C benefits automatically, so call now for your free 2023 no-obligation Medicare benefits review. Just call 800-614-5203. 800-614-5203.
Hey, I'm inside the bank. Where's the $500?
What?
said I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank, not rob your bank.
What?
I said drop your bank and get Dave, the banking app.
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of work for $500.
You think?
I mean, I would love it if you could come get me.
Oh, no. Oh, she going to jail.
Hello?
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
For over 100 years, this light has shined. Through generations of Americans, this light carries on.
Reporting from Ukraine, Scripps News.
A beacon of the free American press. Reporting the facts, telling the whole story. This light illuminates, it informs, and now shines even brighter. Scripps News.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz. So the number of job openings in the United States is down for a third consecutive month. The Labor Department says that for the first time since early 2021, the number of available jobs has dipped below 9 million. Currently, it's sitting at 8.8 million, a drop off from 9.1 million in June. The Federal Reserve has been hoping for more slack in the labor market, and that's because an imbalance between worker demands and supply could cause wages to rise, ramping up inflation concerns. Some Amazon users who don't have a Prime membership will now have to pay more to have their products delivered to their doorstep for free. The retail giant is previously requiring a minimum purchase of $25 to qualify for free delivery. The company is announcing that it was raising the minimum by $10. An Amazon spokesperson said that this new $35 threshold is a test being run in certain regions across the United States. The company hoping that the change is going to encourage more users to sign up for Prime membership, which costs about $140 a year. Chemical manufacturing giant 3M has agreed to shell out $6 billion to settle lawsuits that alleged it sold defective earplugs to the U.S. military. The earplugs were used during training and combat and reportedly left 300,000 service members with issues like hearing loss and ringing ears. National correspondent Marisa Georgiou will have the details coming up in our next hour of Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Dela Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us today. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. And don't forget to check us out online. The address is scripsnews.com. Now, if you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way right here on Scripps News Live. Coming up, FEMA says it's running out of money as hurricane season ramps up, what the agency says it needs right now. And we continue to track Hurricane Idalia. Here's a live look from Tampa, courtesy of the Florida Department of Education. We're going to share how other states have been getting ready after the storm makes landfall. That's after a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is an important message for the millions of Medicare recipients covered under your state's Medicaid. Medicare and Medicaid give you some benefits, but there are Medicare Advantage plans available with even more benefits and savings. Call the number on your screen and get a free Medicare benefits review to see if you qualify. A licensed insurance agent is standing by to take your call.
Just call 800-981-2945 now.
Some Medicare Advantage plans may include dental, vision, and hearing coverage, $0 copays for prescription drugs, and an annual allowance to spend on groceries, rent, and utilities for those who qualify. Plus, some plans may include lots of doctors and hospitals, all in-network. You don't get these benefits automatically. Call now and get a free, no-obligation benefits review.
Just call 800-981-2945 now. That's 800-981-2945.
Plus, certain beneficiaries may qualify based on income verification to enroll in their state-based Medicare savings program. That can add up to $164 back to their Social Security check every month. Call the number on your screen to see if you qualify for this state-based program. A licensed insurance agent is standing by to take your call.
Just call 800-981-2945 now.
Medicare and Medicaid give you some benefits, but there are Medicare Advantage plans available with even more benefits and savings. Plus, some plans may include lots of doctors and hospitals, all in-network. Plans may include dental, vision, and hearing coverage, $0 copays for prescription drugs, and an annual allowance to spend on groceries, rent, and utilities for those who qualify. Plus, you may be eligible for a plan with free transportation. Remember, you don't get these benefits automatically. Call now and get a free, no-obligation benefits review.
Just call 800-981-2945 now. That's 800-981-2945.
Let's get you up to date right now on some of our top stories. Miami mayor and 2024 presidential hopeful Francis Suarez suspending his White House campaign. He dropped out of the race after failing to qualify for the Republican debate. He is the first candidate to drop out of the crowded GOP field. Suarez was hoping to become the first sitting mayor and first Latino elected president. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise diagnosed with multiple myeloma. It's a type of blood cancer that's said to be, quote, very treatable. The Republican congressman has overcome serious health challenges before. He suffered a near-fatal injury in the 2017 shooting at a congressional baseball practice. Scalise's colleagues issued statements and offered messages of support following his announcement. Hurricane Idalia heading for Florida's Gulf Coast. This is a live look right now from Key West, courtesy of Two Oceans Digital. You can see there the wind is really whipping up right now. The category storm is intensifying. Winds there reaching nearly 90 miles per hour at this point, and is expected to make landfall on Wednesday as a powerful Cat 3 hurricane. Places in the storm's path could see storm surge as high as 15 feet, and evacuations are already underway across 22 counties in Florida. Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. As you just saw, Idalia picking up steam as it moves north. Chevron evacuating workers from 3 oil platforms in the Gulf because of the storm's threat. Idalia's outer bands already impacting parts of the Florida Keys with heavy rain and strong winds. Gusty winds also being felt in Sarasota, Florida right now. The city is under a tropical storm warning, and the National Weather Service has been warning Floridians that today is the last day to prepare. Preparations are underway right now in rural areas of Florida's Panhandle. People there remembering the devastating aftermath of Hurricane Michael in 2018. This time, community leaders want to be ready. Gadsden County leaders have set up sandbag locations throughout the area, and they've been urging people to get all of their supplies now.
Native Floridian, you know how extreme these storms can get. So just by mere, let's say, Michael gave us evidence that you really need to be prepared and not wait till the last minute.
Portions of the Florida Panhandle are expected to see flooding. Some of it could be significant. And as Idalia barrels towards Florida, it's already thrashed Cuba. Tens of thousands of people in western Cuba have evacuated their homes as 4 inches of rain hit the island. It's also knocked out power to more than half of a province where tobacco is being produced. And Idalia isn't the only storm on the East Coast. Hurricane Franklin could bring dangerous rip currents and surf to the area as well. The eye of the storm will remain in the Atlantic, but rain bands from the Cat 4 storm will reach the East Coast and Bermuda. Maximum sustained winds have been clocking in at about 140 miles an hour, and it's expected to weaken today, but life-threatening currents remain at risk. 2 people were killed as the storm passed through the Dominican Republic, and thousands of people are in the dark right now. Georgia's governor joining the governors of Florida and the Carolinas in declaring a state of emergency. Idalia's current path includes Savannah and other parts of southeastern Georgia. Already, President Biden has approved an emergency declaration for Florida, and FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell has updated reporters about the agency's response to the storm.
We have pre-positioned different types of resources across all 3 states to include several incident management assistance teams, our urban search and rescue teams, our disaster survivor assistance teams, and they are all ready to pivot to the most impacted areas immediately after the storm passes. We also have warehouses filled with commodities like food, water, blankets, and medical supplies that are ready to rapidly move into the impacted area at the state's request.
Criswell says the Department of Health and Human Services is ready to help with evacuations for nursing homes and hospitals, while the Red Cross has 50,000 meals ready to serve. But all of this is happening as FEMA is admitting that it is running out of money. This year alone, 15 weather-related disasters have exceeded more than $1 billion apiece in damages. Our Deputy Political Director, Joe St. George, has the details.
Well, there are looming questions here in Washington about the federal government's response to hurricanes this hurricane season, and that's because FEMA is apparently running out of cash. For weeks, the administrator of FEMA has warned that the funding could run out by mid-September. That coincides with peak hurricane season. The reason for the cash shortage, the sheer number of disasters. As of August 8th, there have been 15 natural disasters with losses totaling over $1 billion. That doesn't even include the recent wildfires in Maui. President Biden has requested over $10 billion from Congress to replenish the fund, but Congress remains on recess. As far as any actual impacts on Florida or any other community impacted by a hurricane in the coming days and weeks, this lack of funding won't mean FEMA doesn't respond. They're still expected to act, but they may be doing so with a deficit. The lack of funding may also impact communities that suffered a disaster several months ago, since they aren't in need of immediate resources. This lack of funding for FEMA is expected to intensify in the month of September. Remember, Congress will be debating funding the government past September 30th throughout most of next month. It remains unclear how much money FEMA will ultimately get from Congress. Joe St. George, Scripps News, Washington.
In the meantime, President Biden and FEMA have set aside $3 billion to make communities less vulnerable to natural disasters. In Vermont, flash flooding devastated the region in July, and victims are still waiting on federal assistance from the government. Homeowners and business owners are telling our Chris Conti that they feel forgotten.
There have been no shortage of natural disasters in this country this summer. Here in Vermont, they are learning just how long it can take to get FEMA funding and insurance money now that the floodwaters have subsided. The waters across Vermont have mostly returned to a trickle.
My stove and my refrigerator are currently in my bathroom.
But Amy Roger is still left floating in a river of anxiety.
The water came up from underneath through the floor. It's just a mess.
On July 10th, 7 feet of water invaded her Barry, Vermont home.
The hot water heater is floating over there.
We met the next day. Last time we were here, this was
underwater. Yeah.
Roger's $3,000 from FEMA for housing assistance ran out weeks ago. She can no longer afford to stay at a local motel, so this 47-year-old retired Marine is living out of her car. You're homeless.
I am. It's very hard when you're living out of your trunk and you're thinking, oh, what am I going to grab out of the suitcase today? Do I have any important meetings where I need to be on camera and look nice?
The water is gone, but her home needs $200,000 in repairs. Insurance will cover $150,000. Rogers was initially approved for a $25,000 small business loan, but then denied because she has insurance. None of this money, though, will cover the contents of her home.
I'm hoping I can even afford to keep it when it's all said and done, because I don't know what the flood insurance is going to do.
We're still waiting on this to be finished here.
A much taller order of business for Raul Fernandez.
This all was flooded all the way up to the door handle.
Oh, wow.
Here.
As the owner of Rabble Rouser Coffee in Montpelier, he has 12 employees depending on him to reopen.
Yeah, a lot of businesses are not gonna reopen.
Does that worry you?
It worries me because, then the town is not gonna have businesses.
In Vermont's capital, nearly 100 businesses suffered flood damage. Dozens remain closed. Many business owners told Scripps News they aren't eligible for FEMA funds and are worried about taking out small business loans because interest rates are so high right now. Do you think there's going to be enough money there for what you need to do?
That's a good question. I don't know. We don't know. So it's a let's see kind of situation.
A month and a half later, the cameras have mostly turned away. Merrick Zajac and Charlie Watts are still here.
Now that we're getting further away from the flood, the needs are shifting a little bit.
They work for the Parks and Trees Department and have been on this Montpelier street corner every day since July 10th, helping connect flood victims with resources.
And now it's a very, very big question mark phase about what happens now? How do you still live in that space? And how can we help as a community make that happen for each other?
Across the most rural state in the country, bridges and roads are still in need of repair.
It took a village and volunteers from it to save this town. Literally, they saved the town.
In Cabot, Vermont, where the town's main general store was nearly washed away, Select Board Chairman Michael Hogan isn't worried so much about roads as public safety. So you need a whole new fire station?
We do.
This town of 1,700 had its fire station damaged in the floods. They're waiting to see if FEMA will provide funding to rebuild.
We're still getting the numbers in. We're still fixing things.
How much work have you been doing the last few weeks?
I was working probably 12 to 18-hour days consistently.
All of this brings us back to Amy Roger. With no place to stay, she's working her full-time job at a local college remotely from her front porch. Cell service is better out here. She spends her lunch and dinner breaks making home repairs. Do you think you're going to be anywhere near where you need to be to make the repairs in terms of insurance?
That's why I'm doing as much as I possibly can on my own.
The road ahead for this state will be a long one. But much like the mountains here, Vermonters are still standing strong. Chris Conti, Scripps News, Barrie, Vermont.
So to come on Scripps News Live, could a popular weight loss drug work to cut down alcohol cravings? The research we're getting now. And a quick reminder, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline. That number is toll free and it's on your screen. It's 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Again, it's 1-833-472-7477. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas. We'll be right back.
I was having problems with my legs and my feet.
I suffered a lot of cramps, swelling.
I would dread going up and down steps.
Tingling in my legs due to circulation issues.
The aches and pains have just continued to increase.
Did you know if you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, or are over 40, your leg aches and pains could be from poor circulation? Revitive can help reduce leg aches and pains, swelling, and cramps. Revitive uses breakthrough technology to get your calf muscles pumping like a second heart to increase blood flow, reducing leg aches and pains, cramps, or swollen feet and ankles.
Plus, it's drug-free.
The cramping was terrible, and I don't get that anymore. Thank you, Revitive.
Revitive is FDA cleared and clinically proven to increase oxygen-rich blood flow during use. The smart stimulation works so well, over 3 million people use Revitive.
As a firefighter, I'm constantly on my feet. I wish I had known about Revitive a lot earlier. It would have made a huge difference in really who I am today.
Revitive has given me a better quality of life because I am living without pain.
Revitive reduces leg pains 2 times more than exercise alone in just 6 weeks.
We want to take walks. We want to do more social activities, just the typical things in life that I did not feel well enough before Revitive that I was able to do.
Yeah, Revitive is regenerizing my legs and making me feel like, let's do more.
Go to Revitive.com now to learn how Revitive can help reduce leg aches and pains, swelling, and cramps.
The doctor said, go for it. And I'm in the best shape in terms of my legs and my ankles and my feet than I've ever been.
Try Revitive. You will see the difference. It works. It worked for me.
Get the most out of life with Revitive. Visit Revitive.com. That's REVITIVE.com. Or call
1-800-317-6641. That's 1-800-317-6641 today. Or visit Revitive.com. Order now.
I'm Sophia, founder of Pair Eyewear. The only glasses you can change, like you change your clothes. Each pair starts with a base frame, then choose from over hundreds of designs, like a top frame from your favorite holiday. Or you can even turn your glasses into sunglasses. Every pair starts at just $60, including prescription lenses. Glasses are an extension of your personality, and we're here to celebrate each and every version of you. Discover your next pair at paireyewear.com.
Sunday nights on In Real Life, Scripps News journalists take you off the grid.
We were just a bunch of kids with a camera.
And to the heart of the story. In Real Life, Sunday at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News.
Welcome back. I'm Veronica Cruz. So COVID-19 cases are on the rise again in the United States, but the risk of hospitalization or death from the virus isn't as high as it was a couple of years ago. The most recent week of government data shows a 22% uptick in COVID hospitalizations and death, largely due to people heading back indoors and returning to school. But health experts say most people will likely be okay, and that's because 80% of Americans are fully vaccinated and 97% have some immunity from prior infections. Health experts are currently mulling over whether to update COVID-19 booster recommendations for new variants.
What we anticipate is that the people that will be
on the list to encouraged to get it will be people who are older, people who are immunocompromised. Those will be the people that should be first in line to get it. And then we'll learn from CDC who's next on the list.
CDC advisors are meeting early next month to discuss whether to recommend an updated booster. This one would target Omicron subvariants. A medication that's gone viral for helping Americans with diabetes and losing weight seems to also be helping people curb their alcohol cravings. Ozempic, the popular weight loss drug, has the active ingredient of semaglutide, which helps regulate your blood sugar and makes you feel satisfied after eating. Now, people taking weight loss drugs with that ingredient are reporting less urges to drinking alcohol, using nicotine, even opioids. Dr. Lorenzo Leggio joins me now. He's a clinical director at the National Institute of Health. Dr. Leggio, thank you so much for your time today. So we know that this active ingredient in these weight loss drugs or diabetes drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy is called semaglutide. Can you explain the effect that semaglutide might have on the body and the brain?
Sure, thanks for having me. So, semaglutide is a medication that works in our body by controlling the sugar in our body, but also semaglutide does reduce food intake by reducing appetite. And now we started to see some potential evidence that the semaglutide may also reduce the craving for alcohol and possibly for addictive drugs, in addition to its role in controlling sugar and the food intake.
But how is it working exactly? I mean, how does it affect the change to people's reactions to alcohol or maybe even potentially other addictive activities like gambling, if you will?
Right. So semaglutide is working in the brain. And by working in the brain is acting on some brain regions that we have that are responsible for the maintenance and for the development of addiction. So by working in the brain, semaglutide is reducing the craving for alcohol, possibly by acting on some parts of our brain that are responsible both for the pathological overeating, as we say sometimes in biomedical research, but also that are responsible for addictive disorders such as addiction to alcohol and addiction to drugs.
What does the research show you, doctor? I mean, is there enough research out there to show you that Ozempic and similar types of medications actually cause the decline in drinking alcohol and could be used to curb alcoholic cravings?
Right, great question. So we do have a solid evidence at the preclinical level. So working in animal models that resemble human behavior related to addiction. And in these animal models, we see that compared to what we call placebo, semaglutide is reducing alcohol drinking in these models of excessive alcohol consumption. But it's very important to know for the public that we do not have human evidence. Actually, now we do have both my group and other people. We are conducting clinical studies to test whether semaglutide may help people. And we do hope so, but it's very important to wait for the results of these clinical studies. There are some anecdotal reports. Some people taking semaglutide for weight loss or diabetes, they say, oh, I feel that I don't want to drink alcohol any longer. So these anecdotal reports are definitely promising, but it is also very important to wait for the results of these clinical studies.
Right. Okay. So you're saying that the clinical studies are being done right now, but are there any risks involved? If you're taking a semaglutide to curb cravings, alcohol cravings, if you will, are you at risk for health complications?
So semaglutide, and this is a great question, semaglutide is used in clinical practice for diabetes and for obesity. So we do know that these are safe medications, generally speaking. However, as you start to use a medication with a different population, it's going to be very important to make sure that there are no safety concerns that we are not aware of. So in fact, as we are launching these new clinical studies to look at semaglutide in people with alcohol use disorder, we are going to monitor carefully both alcohol drinking, but also the safety of these medications. So I would say we do not have any serious concern, But it's also very important to wait for the results of these studies to make sure that when given to this population, semaglutide remains as safe as we think it is.
All right, we'll continue to wait for those clinical studies and the results. Dr. Lorenzo Leggio, Clinical Director at the National Institute of Health. Doctor, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Bye-bye.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, some older adults finding a new hobby with a trip to the garage, how they are tapping into that young at heart feeling through music. And a quick reminder, we'd like to hear from you. You can always give us a follow at Scripps News on X, formerly known as Twitter. Send us a post or a message. You can do so as well on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and on Threads. We'll be right back.
Attention all seniors. You can now get up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, including your credit card debt, with no medical exam, starting at less than $1 a day.
Oh, honey, your dad and I can't stop talking about this baby that's coming.
We've also been thinking a lot about our future, and no matter what, we want to make sure we aren't leaving you and your family with any of our debts.
Just last week, we read that the price of a funeral can be $8,000 or more.
Wow, Jeff and I definitely would not have the money to pay for that.
And that's just a funeral. But you don't have to worry. We called, and with one phone call, we were eligible for $50,000 for our funeral and final expenses.
Well, that's great, but don't you need to take a medical exam to qualify? You and Mom have some health issues.
No. There's no medical exam, and we were able to get coverage right over the phone.
And our rates can never be increased, our benefits can never be decreased, and our coverage can never be canceled.
I'm so glad you made that call.
Don't leave loved ones with your debt. Call 800-293-5789 now and see if you qualify for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day. There's no medical exam, and you can be approved even if you have pre-existing health conditions. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. There's no obligation. Call 800-293-5789 now. There's no paperwork, no hidden fees, and no waiting periods. And you can start coverage right over the phone, starting at less than $1 a day. Call 800-293-5789. That's 800-293-5789. 800-293-5789.
Trying on glasses using Warby Parker's virtual try-on is so lifelike, so realistic, that you might not even be able to tell what's real from what's virtual. Yep, it's that good. Virtually try on hundreds of styles in the Warby Parker app.
Hey.
Hey, I'm inside the bank. Where's the $500?
What?
I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank, not rob your bank.
What?
I said drop your bank and get Dave. The banking app?
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of work for $500.
You think?
I mean, I would love it if you could come get me.
Oh, no. Oh, she went to jail.
Hello?
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
There's a world of free premium programming right at your fingertips. All you need to do is rescan your television using a digital antenna. Then enjoy a lineup of 24-hour news and entertainment channels.
I'm kind of loving this.
Visit thefreetvproject.org.
If you are curious about Connecticut's newest first responder, then you want to look no further. This adorable little 6-month-old is getting a new leash on life and joining the team who saved him. This beagle, now named Riggs, was recently saved from a hot car by East Haven, Connecticut's animal control and firefighters. And now he's going to be seeing a lot more of them because he is the fire station's new support dog. Oh, he is just too cute. So hobbies are a lot of fun, and now they've been proven to keep people healthy. A study from researchers at University College London found that hobbies are linked with 30% lower odds of experiencing depression. Megan Shin of Scripps News Indianapolis shows us how a music school there has been helping people young and old find new meaning.
Tapping back into your hobbies is important, especially as an adult.
All right, you want to start?
But what about
All right, it's going to be loud right there.
living out your rock star dreams? Rock Garage in Indy makes it possible. For Bill Wells and the band Blues Locos, it's a dream come true. You never tell, Bill is only 77 years young. They're a toe-tapping good time.
We want people tapping their feet and bobbing their heads.
They're all adults who formed this band later in life.
I read that as you get older, you should do things that challenge your brain. So I took up bass lessons, and it turned out I ended up in one of the bands.
How are the personalities?
Great people, great musicians.
Bill's on vocals. Rock Garage's owner, Preston Nash, mastering the drums.
This part of being in a band, like you said, being part of something bigger than yourself is huge.
Preston's been teaching music since his 20s. Now owning Rock Garage with his wife combines his love for music teaching and touring days.
It's hard to find people to be in a band.
So Preston and his wife, Rocky Nash, take newcomers, teach them guitar, bass, drums, vocals, and more. Then they book live performances for Rock Garage bands all across central Indiana.
The confidence building is incredible. Getting people on stage and expressing themselves in such a raw way.
It's raw music and emotion.
Folks that are on the spectrum, folks that are dealing with PTSD. Music seriously has made such a difference in their lives. It's unlocked them in so many ways.
It turns strangers into family, literally.
I think we're going on our third marriage as a result of the program.
And it brings people together from all walks of life.
Rock Garage is my home, away from home.
We're talking an age range from 11 to 77. Americans and Italians like Francesco on keyboard.
As young kids, our dream was to play in bars in the U.S. So right now, I'm kind of living, my dream.
It's more than music.
I don't have a lot of regrets, but my biggest regrets is that I stopped playing the instrument for 30 years.
It's a lifestyle opening doors and connecting Hoosiers.
Absolutely. This is the best band I could hope for.
Through the love of music.
It definitely is family.
So great. Music is the best. Our thanks to Megan Shin there for that story. I'm Veronica de la Cruz. Thank you so much for being with us today. We have continuing coverage of Hurricane Idalia in the next hour of Scripps News Live for you.